And welcome back. In this tutorial we're going to continue on our ramp car project. One thing I did between videos that I didn't realize I hadn't done was to save my project, so I'm just calling it ramp car. Again, nice intuitive file name. So now we can take a look at the front, and we notice that the back and the front, or the left and the right, are not the same. So we're going to need different parts for that. Now we can make this more quickly if we're a little more efficient at making our parts. So let's go ahead and get started on the front. Let's call it the right side over here. So I'm going to start another new part, and I'm going to do a sketch on my right side. Throw in a center point rectangle, and that should be 1 tall by 3 wide. And we're going to extrude that 1/8 of an inch and give it its wood texture. I'm going to go ahead and save this as right. Again, how you name it, up to you, but this is just how we're going to roll. So let's place our right side, and let's start to throw some constraints on there. So we can constrain this. Actually, let's flush up this and this. And so now we can drag this down, and if we flush up the bottom and then the outside, really what I'm checking for here is, yes, I know I'm going to have interference, but I want to make sure that my overall size is correct. And so it is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to suppress those last two constraints. Pick them. So I selected one, held down the control button, bottom left of the keyboard, picked the second flush, right click, suppress. Now those constraints are suppressed so I can still move it however I'd like. So if I drag this up, what I can see is I've got to have a double notch here. So if we open this part and sketch on the front, same thing as before. I'm going to go ahead and throw in notch equals 0.125, and then I'm going to dimension my height as notch. If I spelled it correctly, that would be good. And then the width over here will be notch times 2. Now when I finish that, I'm going to go ahead and extrude that as a cut, again through all, and I'm going to return. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to unsuppress my two constraints real quick, and I'm going to see if that's correct. And that is not correct because we did this centered up. Okay, so no big deal. So we'll come back, and what we'll do is we'll get a dimension, and we'll just use a straight dimension for this. So this is probably 0.1875. So we can open our part, open our sketch, finish that up, and return. And so now if we unsuppress our two constraints, we can see that that is correct. So let's take our bottom constraint here and suppress that only. Nope. Okay, so we did get that wrong. All right, no big deal. So this needs to be a cut. See, this is why I like to do this method. This is not one of those teachable moments. Oh, you know, look, I made a mistake. Oops, how do I fix it? That's a legit mistake on my part, and it's not a big deal. It happens to everybody. So I guess it is a good teachable moment, but it wasn't planned. So let's go ahead and let's set this to equal 0. And there's a reason that I'm doing this, and it's because I want to use this same part So we're going to go ahead and leave this set up just like it is. And then that's going to be my first cut. So we're going to finish and then return. And let's save real quick. And the nice thing about saving while you're doing this is it says, hey, the write and the assembly file need to be saved. Do you want to save them both? Unless you've got a really good reason why, always say yes. So we're going to drag this down, and now that looks correct. And so now we can put in our second cut. So if I open this up, I can come in here, and we can see that this is already called in here. Let's see, what do we got? We've got sketch 1, extrusion, notch. So we're going to change this to lowercase d4. And then we're going to hit add numeric. And then we're going to add our, oh, because it hasn't, okay. Let's see if that held. Okay, so now we can come in, we can get rid of this notch _1. We can set this to equal 0.125. Okay, so we're fixed, we're good. So now I can sketch on the front face here, draw a rectangle. This is equal to notch, notch, and then my location will also be equal to notch, or I can just pick one of these since they're all tied together. Extrude that as a cut through all. Okay. So now we know that that's correct. We can look at our part. We can see that everything looks like it's going to line up correctly. So now all we need to worry about is our other side. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and pattern this extrusion along the z-axis. And we want to flip that. And let's make our quantity 10. And I don't think it got our feature. There we go. Notch times 2. And that actually looks correct, which is good. And then what we need to do is we need to add one more cut over here to compensate for this solid down here. And we'll do that by mirroring our first cut along the XY plane. Now when I drag this down, I'm not worried about the sides. I'm only worried about this piece and the bottom. So when I drag this down, I see that this lines up perfectly. So we're good. So off video, I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing between my side and my front, which is also the back. And we're going to get that all done up. I don't want to take up time on the video for that. And I will see you guys once that's done.